everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon featuring our guest, Gigi Schweikert. I am Nicole Farkas. I will be your MC for today, and I'd love for everyone just to pop in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We're excited to have you aboard on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Of course, today our webinar is hosted by Tony D'Agostino, who's the founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360. And we're super excited to have Gigi with us. The topic, which I'm sure you're all excited to hear about, is having your centers be successful. We're always here to, help the kids succeed, but in a way to help the children succeed, we need to help the staff and teachers succeed. So let's see here. Who do we have joining us today? We've got Pennsylvania popping in, Jeremy from New York, welcome. Annie from Wisconsin, hello. We've got Juden, I apologize if I brutalized your name, from Illinois. Angela from Sunrise Early Learning and Development Center in Fort Worth, Texas, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Let's see, we've got Laura joining us from Paulsboro, New Jersey. Laura Martin from upstate New York, welcome. I'm in New York myself, so happy to have you guys aboard. We've got Brittany from Wisconsin as well. And then hello everyone from Rochester. I love that. Hello, I'm from Rochester, New York. Don't know if you're from Rochester, New York, or Rochester somewhere else, because there's a few Rochesters out there. Kimberly, nice to have you aboard. Ashley, hi from Mississippi, nice to see you. We got a full house today, so we're super excited about that. Again, today's topic, we're going to be featuring on using teacher skills to guide adults and discover ways to communicate your expectations more clearly to your teachers and your staff, and to help others overcome barriers that can help them from succeeding. So we always want everyone to be successful. So we're excited to be having Gigi discuss that today. So let's see, who else do we have here? We've got Jennifer from Naperville, Illinois, Ashley from Mississippi, Chrislyn, welcome, Wisconsin, Iowa. Wow, we got people from all over the place today, which is great. Suzanne from Long Island, hello and welcome. Throughout our webinar today, we definitely encourage questions. You can put comments in the chat area, but you can also put into the Q&A any questions that you have, whether they're for Tony or whether they're for Gigi. And I will make sure that they do see them. If for some reason we don't get to them, please just know that we will try to get to everybody. But we love your feedback, we love interaction, and we would love to have you put those questions and comments in that Q&A box, as well as make comments in the chat as well. See, who else do we have joining us today? We have Sue from Illinois, Jen from Texas, hello. We've got Savannah, somebody else from Texas, in the Gingerbread House Academy, welcome. We've got Katie from Portland, Oregon, representing the West Coast, absolutely. Let's see, Rachel from Rochester, New York. Hello, Rachel, Rochester, New York, that's where I am. Nice to see you. So again, my name is Nicole Farkas. I will be your MC for today. I am the senior member advocate here at Inspire Care. If you do have any questions that were not answered, please feel free to reach out. My email is right here on the screen. I will also put that in there throughout the webinar, so you guys do have my email to reach out with any questions or comments as well. This is also for CEU credits, which Sarah throughout the webinar will put that information in there as well for you. Today, what we're going to do is we're just going to briefly go over some housekeeping in regard to Inspire Care 360. We're going to be, I will be introducing Tony, and Tony will then pass the torch over to Gigi. And today we're going to be, as I mentioned earlier, discussing leadership, embracing your role as a leader, being able to set clear expectations to your staff, inspiring others, no pun intended, and laughing and having fun. We as a team here at Inspire Care 360, we are about, enjoying our jobs, enjoying our members, enjoying working with all of you on these webinars. And the biggest thing is having fun. As I did mention, we do have the ability that the links will be in the chat throughout the webinar that you can get a CEU certificate. But there is the link if you did want to just write that down, but we will provide you with your hour training through that. Today's host will be Tony D'Agostino, our fearless leader, as I always say, which makes him laugh, and founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360. We always like to say that we do drink our own Kool-Aid. We do have 3 early learning schools here ourselves in Western New York that Tony has owned and operated. 30 years of experience in the industry with talent, people, and learning. And again, always making sure that we, as his staff, are smiling, enjoying life, and having fun. So Tony, I'm going to pass the torch to you.
Way too much. Thank you so much. You have to get rid of that 30+ years part of it. I'm starting to.
You wrote it down, not me.
I must have. I got to get rid of that. Thanks so much, Nicole. You always do an amazing job, and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to jump right on in because Gigi, who is a friend of mine, and I'm so happy that she is a friend of mine, has a lot of good content. We're going to jump in with a number of different announcements at first, though, sort of a way we pay our bills. And with that, to do that, we have a few different ebooks that are coming out. These are books you'll notice if you went to our website and you went under resources, there's a specific section regarding ebooks. We release an ebook from every 1 to 2 months. One that has been already released is Driving to Peak Performance. This is really about how do we get all of our team members all aligned so we're all singing off the same hymn page. We're all working together to get to our goals and objectives for our school, which is absolutely critical. We know how chaotic it is when it comes to people doing different things and not working together. So please, look and download this free ebook, take a look at it for you. We wrote it and we've received a lot of good feedback on it, but it's yours for free. And again, it is about focusing on your core values, your code of conduct, your compliance, your curriculum, careers, and culture. We call that the 6 C's. And more to be learned there, and hopefully you enjoy that. We have another ebook that's coming out soon, and this one will be upcoming release will be Building Trust with Your Staff in the Childcare Business. This is really about how do you cultivate a positive work environment using effective communications. How do you really help your team members navigate both their career as well as their expectations to get to real satisfaction, and really getting to what we would say is the highest quality of care and education for your kids, and then really building up your business reputation. And I think we know in our business, trust is everything. It comes down to the parents. The parents are with us because they trust us. Our staff, though, are with us because they trust us. And I'm a big believer that our secret sauce is in our staff, that if we've worked it out right and we have a strong, trusted bond with our staff, other pieces fall in place. So please have an opportunity. If you would like to, you'll see an email coming your way for you to download that. We're talking about leadership development today. I'm so happy to have Gigi on to talk about it because she's truly a leader in our industry. So we have a lot to learn from her. One of the things that we do bring to the market here is a certified leadership development program. Many of our staff members are coming up from the ranks of a manager level, which actually before oftentimes they were just a teacher and they didn't have a lot of leadership training and management training for that matter. But there's a big difference between being a manager and being a leader. It's really about how do you help empower your teammates? How do you help them be accountable for what they do as to just telling people what to do all the time? This allows your teammates to solve their issues. So if you're a director or an owner and you always have a line of people at your door every day, you're not exactly doing it right. If you have people who know what they need to do, but also realize they're accountable for different parts of the business, but come to you with ideas and suggestions and things to help solve your issues, you are doing it right. That's what this program is about. This is a 9-week course that really focuses. This is a virtual course on, so what we do is not online training. It's a virtual get together every week for a couple hours for directors to owners to really be able to talk about and really learn how to be a leader and how to be a coach to your teammates. So it really brings a lot of value. And I think you'll find some great value if you have not already gone through it. Pretty much everybody who's gone through it has given us a testimonial on it. So we're very happy about that. So again, it's about working on your business as about working in your business. The other element that we want to talk about just quickly here before we get started with Gigi is something we rolled out now a couple of months ago, and that is peak performance. If you are a member with Inspire Care 360, you know a lot of what we do is about helping you onboard, helping you retain your teammates by getting them educated and getting them up to speed as quick as possible to competency. Well, part of that is really about a concept that we came up with, and we built it into a comprehensive program. This program is called Peak Performance. And what does that mean? Peak performance is really about, quite often we have staffs who lack expectations or training or cohesiveness, so they're really not working together. But many of our staffs do get basic training or some expectations or basic mentoring. So they're somewhat engaged. But the real objective is to have all of your teammates working uniformly together. So they're acting like a team, that they're having the same values, the same code of conduct, that they're working together, professionally trained. So if they've been with you for 16 years, or if they've been with you for 6 weeks or 6 months, they are all on the same page. And that's what peak performance is about. It's almost a sort of a set and forget. Again, we go through the 6 C's in this program of addressing overall compliance, your code of conduct, the core values, the curriculum they need to teach the children with to go through themselves, what their career opportunities in your schools, and what your culture is. This helps them directly align your teammates together. It overall helps you build for your newest staff to your most tenured staff, get them all on the same page. So you get to everybody being competent relatively quick. It's also something that is automated. It works through our Inspire University. So this means that as directors, administrators, owners, you do not have to lift a finger very often. This is an automated process that automates your performance management and your reward system too, because there's an opportunity in here to assign rewards for levels of achievement so they automatically achieve it, and creating that carrot as to that stick environment. And it is something that just runs ongoing for you. So that is peak performance. If you would like to learn more about that, please reach out to Nicole or one of our team members. And now I'd like to invite on, I should say, Gigi. So Gigi, if you want to join us here, I would love to have you come on. How are you, Gigi?
How are you doing? Hello, everyone. It's so nice to well, I can't see you, but it's so nice to be with you.
And it's great. And I'm so happy to have you here, Gigi. And of course, we act as if we haven't talked a few minutes before the call started, but of course we have. We want to make sure everything goes well for you. But, you know, I just want to spend a moment here to introduce Gigi. She's an amazing woman that really, and a really amazing leader, I would just say in general terms. She's someone who mentors me, candidly, in what I've done and what I am doing. And I'm very proud to have a relationship with her. Obviously, right up front on her bio, she puts probably the most important thing, and that she's a mother of 4 adult children. She's obviously brought a lot of significant content. She's oftentimes referenced in the press, you know, basically not only seen domestically, but internationally. And she has a lot of different positions at high levels, being directors like with the United Nations Child Care Centers of New York City and Johnson & Johnson Child Care. And now is the CEO of Lightbridge Academy, which is serving a significant number of families. I like the last one though. So you've been making your own gourmet meals out of your own garden. Well, now that we're back into springtime, I think you could do that again, probably.
Well, here's the deal. Do you see the JK? That means just kidding.
I know, but
Okay,
I like
good.
that one. I wanted to put that right underneath your mother of four. So
I actually have one that says, I really do like to clean. I clean to the point that I get blisters on my fingers. I love vacuuming and mowing because it's got a beginning and an end, and it feels great in a world where it never stops to be able to actually have something that you accomplish. So that's my go-to.
and of course, everybody's going to say, "Come visit my house," because we could use it.
And I will if I can bring my I won't say what kind of vacuum I have, but I really like it.
So I will say that I've met Gigi over time, and most recently I've seen her at one of the many different conferences, and she gave some just wonderful presentations there, and it had me want to reach out to her and bring her to you as an audience here. So Gigi, I'm going to hand this over to you and have you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts around leadership and what are some tips for us overall. Love that thought. So I'm handing it to you, and you instruct me if you want to move the slides forward or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So well, first of all, Nicole and Sarah and Tony, thank you so much for having me. And for those who joined, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this webinar. I hope you will use the chat feature. So thank you about loving my books. I'll tell you just a quick thing about the book situation is, why did I write them? Because it was the same thing I kept saying over and over and over. And I wanted them to be written in a really simple way. And when I started the concept of winning ways, I really wanted them to be something that no matter where you turn to on any page, that you would get some bits and pieces and nuggets of information so that you didn't have to do a full read on the first book that I did, which was Prime Times with my mentor and the late Jim Greenman. And so thank you. Yeah, some of my book covers are back there. Just the cover. I didn't actually read the inside. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, just so nice to hear that. So one of the things that really kind of stuck in my mind when Tony was talking was the whole piece about the business acumen and that leadership piece, because I started as a toddler teacher, and I think that somebody did pull out Prime Times. It's a great book. And so I started as a toddler teacher, and as you may have heard me say, if you've seen me speak, is I don't really believe that there's any such thing as toddler teachers. I think toddler teachers are preschool teachers that we talked into going in the toddler room because no one else would, because that's always the section of the center that even during this staffing crisis, that is always the biggest crisis. So here at Lightbridge Academy, that classroom is called Purple Cats. And it is definitely always a challenge working in that. But what I'd like to say is that the majority of the things that I use in leadership now, even serving over 10,000 families, and we have 600 employees, is that I still use the same things that I used with children in working with adults. I just kind of don't use the cutesy voice piece. And so let's take a look at the next slide, and I'll tell you what I think is most important about those of us who are working in early childhood education. And that's admitting that you're the supervisor, that you're the leader, that you're the manager, that you're the boss. And as Tony said, there's one thing about being a manager, that's kind of pushing the numbers, getting things done. The boss is telling people what to do, but the leader is inspiring people. And it's growing new leaders. And it's the most incredible thing that you can do. It's so satisfying. And I don't know if any of you ever tune into my LinkedIn, but I guess about a week ago, I posted one on the imposter syndrome and how I feel like imposter in my new role as a CEO. So understand that everything that I'm talking to you about today, I still feel the same way as when I got promoted to the lead teacher, and then I got promoted to an administrative assistant, and then an assistant director, and then a director, and then a regional manager, and then a vice president. And I continue to have that feeling of being an imposter. And so check out that piece on LinkedIn and what it talks about and how we shouldn't be that way. But many, and the majority of us who do come from the early childhood field and who grow into leadership, we grew into leadership because we were great with working with young children. We were great with making Play-Doh. We were great with doing a really tremendous curriculum. We were great with classroom management. So people were like, oh, you're great with kids, so we want you to be great with adults. Well, it doesn't always transfer. And we are very nurturing, very loving types of people. And so the thing that I think is most important is admitting that you're the supervisor, that you're in charge. And people do want to know someone's in control. They do want to look for a leader that inspires them. And they do want someone that they know that they can trust. Tony talked about the trust business. And so I think that what's hard to do, and I think this is especially hard for women, is that our job when we move into the ranks of leadership is not to be liked, it's to be respected. But what I have found is that if I continually act with integrity and I continually do the right thing, which I'll talk about in the next bullet point, is that most people will like me. They won't always like my decisions, and not everyone will agree with me. But if I work towards doing the right thing, working with integrity, trying to be respected, then in most situations, I'm going to be liked too.
That's awesome. Hey, Gigi, I'd love to ask you a question up front here. You know, you talked about also one of your mentors who I think you even mentioned had passed. Early on in your career, probably around the time you're a toddler teacher or even before that or after that, what was one of your inflection points where you noticed leadership in somebody else and go, wow, that to me is impressive the way that person did that? Did you have any of those points in your career where you could think about?
I am fortunate to have so many points in my career like that. So my first director at the United Nations was Ellen Feldman. And this woman was fantastic. And one of the things that she did that I continue to do today, just like in working with young children, is she met you where you are. So what are your skills and what are your areas for opportunity? And she focused on building the skill set that you did really well to build your confidence, and then improving those things where you have opportunity. And so I will always remember that about Ellen. And I will also always remember that she gave me such grace. And she created an environment where you were allowed to make mistakes. So we don't want to make mistakes like not knowing where a child is or creating an environment that's not safe. Those are paramount in what we do. But we can create a situation where people can make mistakes and maybe how they're trying to set up a lesson plan, or even in sometimes their interactions with parents. So I'm going to give you a short story of how I really messed up, and how Ellen, the mentor that you asked me about, kind of helped me recover from that. So I was working with preschool children, and I absolutely love that too. Toddlers are my all-time fave. And this was a time where I really was kind of that new teacher. I was just embarking upon getting my graduate degree. I love to kind of have that carpet squares and everybody in a circle, and it was crisscross applesauce. And I was making sure that children had hands-on activities and things for them to do on their own. And I was doing a whole series and theme with my other teachers in the classroom on bubbles. It was all about bubbles, 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 bubbles. So when we did this piece in circle time, I had each child that had a cup, each child that had a straw, and I had gone to, back in the day, and some of you may remember Woolworths, it's like a Walmart, but a little bit different, and I had bought this pink dishwashing liquid. And so the whole point of what my curriculum, really cool, watch me, Ellen, I am a great preschool teacher, was that the kids were going to get these cups, blow into the straw, and when they blew into the straw, all all these bubbles were going to come cascading over the side of the cup. Well, when you give a 3-year-old a cup and a straw with pink liquid, they do not blow out. They suck in. So I will just tell you that I had a few children who threw up, which is really not so good. And we got over it, and it was fine, but I learned a lot about it. I think I learned most about it that it's always trying to do your best, learning from your mistakes, and recognizing that we're all human.
Well, and I think you just nailed something there that I love the fact of you having your mentor as your first director is amazing. But like you're mentioning, learning from your mistakes, I think is really sort of the thing that you talk about there. You know, I think it's one of those, you know, if you're kicked by the, we'll call it the donkey here, once, you realize you're standing in the wrong spot. Twice, and you're like, yeah, you are the problem. So, you know, part of it is I think that as us, if we want to be leaders, we look at our teammates quite often, and we have to allow them sometimes to fail. And it's difficult. It's so difficult. You know, to me, at least at times when I'm like, oh, I'm giving them some coaching and guidance, but I cannot do it for them, because if I do it for them, they will never embrace it themselves. Tell me just a little bit about how you've helped people embrace change or becoming more empowered, like you were talking about.
So I think there's all kinds of different change, and there's good change and not so good change, and there's change management, and there's change that you have to do, there's change that you want to do. And the basis for all of it is people understanding the why behind it. So even good change, like my daughter's getting married, gosh, I can't even believe that. But she's so stressed out, but it's a good thing. And I got promoted to a new job, and it's a good thing, but change is still hard. So one, it's understanding that whether change is good or whether it's hard, that it's change. So for example, Tony, if I ask, what do you have to drink every morning when you get up? What's your go-to?
Well, I'll tell you, coffee right out of the gate. If not, I'm not going to make it.
Okay. And what do you put in that coffee? Is it black? Is it, what do you
have a little bit of cream, and that's it.
Okay, a little bit of cream in your coffee. So my deal is I have a large iced decaf, almond milk, 2 Splendas. And what if I were to ask you, take my large iced decaf, almond milk, 2 Splendas, and I'll take your coffee with cream?
Well,
You'd be like,
I would ask you probably why.
why do I even drink it, right? Because it's decaf, because there's a little bit of caffeine, I don't need much. Yeah. Secondly, is that even that, like, you just ask about change, and you don't even want to change your coffee with me, like, for one day. So we're such creatures of habit, where we sleep, where we park, what we do. And so we get so excited as leaders that we want people to change and do something differently. And it's hard. So let me go back to that. So one is that people have to understand the why behind it. But more importantly, is if you can create a culture where everyone is responsible for change, and they get to change themselves, and they get to roll out certain things in certain classrooms and things like that. I think that's what's really important, is that we don't just have change for change's sake, but we do it because there's a really good why behind it that either creates a more supportive work environment, it delights children more, or it's more convenient for the parents, or it makes us a better company or center in the community.
Yeah, so, and I think you bring up a really good point, that as leaders, it's funny because as individuals, people say, oh, I embrace change. Change is tough for everybody. I don't care who it is. But we all of a sudden turn around as leaders and all of a sudden think, well, you know what? We have all this change that we need to do to get to the next level. And like you just said, people don't like to change. So how do you bridge that? How do you sort of span that chasm of moving people and helping them move, as to them not wanting to move, to have your cup of coffee or your drink when you have to have my coffee?
Well, one is, if we stay somewhat childlike, we'll want we'll want some change. We'll want to explore the world. We'll want to do something different. So if we can kind of see the world through the eyes of a child, I think is one. Two is understanding the why behind it. Three is giving it a chance. And giving it a chance means at least for 3 weeks where you can, kind of see the habit, unless it's something that you really don't want to do. And I think the other thing is making sure that we do assessments along the way of that change. Is it what we intended? Does it take additional resources? Is it harder than we thought? Is it giving us the results that we wanted? Is it really important? Or in some situations, we say, you know what? We thought it was a good idea, but guess what? It's not. We're going to go back to doing what we were doing before, which takes us all the way back to what we talked about initially, which is creating an atmosphere where you can make mistakes or where you can try things and they don't always have to pan out.
Awesome. I love that. Good stuff. Well, I'll stop interrupting you and let you continue.
No, I'm loving the conversation. So I think, again, for me, in every arena and every walk of life and all that I've been doing, whether that's professionally or personally, is using the influence that I have and using it in a positive way. And so each one of you in a leadership role, by your title, by what you do, by where you are, there are people that are looking at you for direction. There are people that are looking at you and thinking you're a great mentor, and they could be looking at you and thinking they wish you would do things a little bit differently. But regardless of that, is how do you use your power and influence? And so my power and influence, what I tried to do today, and it's kind of been different over the years, but I want any interaction that I've had. And so that means today with all of you on here that I can't see and everyone that took some time out to just spend a little bit of time with us today, is that you walk away with this in a better situation. You come with an idea or you feel relaxed because you took some time out during the job, because you learned something new, because you're inspired to find out more information. And so I just hope that I can always be in a situation where I add value. And sometimes that means doing less talking and more listening.
Wonderful. Absolutely great. And as we look at what you look at, how you offer value through leadership, where do you think is a starting point for those who are like, they see themselves as a manager? They don't really see themselves as a leader today. They see themselves as, I do have that line of people who are at my office. I do find I have to tell everybody what to do. I do find out that people don't seem to be completely inspired for me. So we have, like what you were talking about early on, which I think a lot of us have, is that imposter syndrome. That whole, like, I'm sort of faking it here until I make it kind of thing. And I can't believe people are listening to me kind of thing, So
right.
Where would you suggest for those out there who are really starting to try to foster a foundation for themselves to becoming more of a leader?
So the one piece is admit you're the leader. People need someone to follow. They feel better in an environment where there's a leader. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the first step. The next step is setting appropriate expectations. I really haven't met anyone ever who doesn't want to be successful. There are people who are shy, and there are people who are slow to adopt, and they might feel more comfortable around the children than adults, but everyone wants to succeed. We see it in children all the time. And so I think if we set appropriate expectations for people, we set them up to succeed, it's really important. And I thought you were going to kind of allude to this a little bit ago, but is that whenever something's not working in my company now, or with the team, or with the people that I'm interacting with, the first thing I have to say is not, what is wrong with you, Tony? What is wrong with you, Nicole? What is wrong with you, Sarah? What I have to say in my communication and in my leadership is, if people aren't doing the things that are expected, what do I need to do differently? So I always look to myself first. The first question I ask myself when someone is not performing or things are not going well, and this is in my personal life too, what do I have to do differently? Do I have to communicate better? Do I have to train people better? Do I have to be more patient? Do I have to provide them with greater resources? Do I have to model side by side with them? What are the things? And everybody's different and everyone learns differently. So it's really trying to be able to see, making appropriate expectations, and then really helping people to meet those expectations.
And I really like that. One thing that I learned a while back, and I think is a nugget that hopefully some people can take away too, is quite oftentimes when we're discussing with staff, teammates, superiors even, we sometimes, when there's an issue or there's a problem, we sometimes look at it as we're across the table from the person. So Gigi's on one side of the table, Tony's on the other side of the table. Even though you're looking at us probably on Zoom side by side, we sometimes look at it that way. And it is oftentimes difficult from a leadership standpoint to solve issues when it becomes that, because then there's a desire to blame. When you look at it, if you try to envision that you both are actually sitting on the same side of the table and the problem is on the other side of the table. And now Gigi and Tony are pairing up to solve the problem together. That is really an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, because it's really about saying, listen, this occurred, whether it was a mistake, an issue, something that surprised everybody, CPS showed up, something happened. We have an opportunity to work on the problem together and identify, here's a problem that we're going to solve together instead of we're going to blame it on somebody. So that is something I learned early in my career, and I think it's helped me greatly in the communication side. It has also helped me set expectations of who I am, that you can trust that I'm not about blaming someone or placing blame as much as I'm about, my expectation is that I want to solve the problem. I expect you to come to the table to work with me to solve the problem. So
absolutely. And some people, I want to get to the question that's in the chat too. And some people will say, you have to come with a solution. And while I really am an advocate of people coming with solution if they have a problem, is if they had a solution, they probably wouldn't be coming to me. So I think part of leadership is helping guide people to find a solution when they can't. So there's nothing wrong with someone coming to me and saying, I don't know how to handle this. What do I do? Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at a couple of these. One was holding someone accountable. And what would you say a staff member brings an issue to you? What was it? Yeah, so Terry Davis, it is always when a staff member brings something to me, the first thing that I say to them is, what do you want to happen? So I like to define what people see, because what they want to have happen is maybe not what I want to have happen. And while people are very easy to complain or to be upset about something, they're very often they're not able to articulate what it is they want to have happen. And this kind of goes back to the question before about a staff member who's tattling or a staff member who's having issues with other people, and kind of how do you handle it? And I think one of the things that is really, I know this is really important to me, but I think I do pretty well over time now, where you've got 30, Tony, I'm going on almost 40 years of doing this, is that is being really transparent with people and really talking to people honestly. So Tony, I'm going to pretend that you're that staff member. And so I would have a conversation with you. And if I was a new leader and I was a little embarrassed, and I tend to get a little splotchy red here, I would say, Anthony, thank you so much for sitting down with me. This is a really difficult conversation for me to have, because I really care about you a lot. You might even see me get a little splotchy here because it's so hard to have. But I wanted to let you know that it's come to my attention that, and I'm sure it's not you're doing this intentionally, but you're kind of picking on people a bit, and you brought some issues to me with kind of a tattling way in it. And I don't think it's serving you well with other staff members. And I know that's hard to hear, but what's important to me is that you be successful. So I think that if you have an issue with someone, it probably makes sense for you to speak directly to them. And I also think you should probably think about your jokes, and when you're picking on someone, whether that's really funny to someone else, because it's only humor and it's only banter if the other person finds it funny. And so that's kind of how I would start the conversation. Did I yell at the person? Did I humiliate you? Did I shame you? No, I just said, look, here's how I'm feeling a little nervous about having this conversation. I described by observation what was happening, what you were doing, and what the results would be, and then kind of guided to some ways that you might be able to work on that.
You know, and that is, I love what you've talked about where you're answering Terry's question there. You sort of brought my mindset a little bit to the fact that I like to tattletale. No, I'm just kidding. But what I was going to say was, I do feel that there is opportunity for some people to grow, but we also do have people who we run down the same path over and over again with. And this isn't so much about leadership as much as, well, it is leadership on your part of it. But when you run into some of those team members who I guess we would identify probably as toxic in the environment, where you're having to have the same conversations over again, what goes through your mindset when you have invested with them, you've empowered them, you've been genuine and transparent, yet they come back to you as if whatever you said just went right in one ear, out the other?
Yeah, so really good question. And I'll answer it two ways. I'll answer it with, in today's world, we're happy to be staffed. So if you're going through a staffing crisis, you're probably a lot more tolerant than you've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
However, what I know, Tony, is that toxic people turn other people toxic. And if you've given someone the benefit of the doubt, and if you've had those conversations over time, the best thing that you can do is have that person leave, even if it means, you know, and again, speak to your directors if you're not the director or you're not the owner. But we've made some decisions here at Lightbridge during this staff crunch time to not enroll in situations where we don't have the staff that we need. And even with that limited staff, that if someone is toxic, and not just toxic and they're not looking out for the children and the health and safety, that's a no-brainer. That's super easy. When someone is not caring for a child well, or or child's in danger, you have no problem terminating someone,
Right.
Which to me says that all of you are capable of that termination or dissolving that employment. And again, also speak with your HR before you dive into all of that. But what it says is that, what are the things that would really necessitate someone leaving immediately? And we know what all those are, and we won't list that. But if we've had many conversations and it's been 6 months, it's been a year, and I wouldn't take that long to do it, but that's probably what we do because we're so nurturing and loving, is that I think you really need to say to that person, listen, this is not a good fit. We've had a conversation on this date, and this date, and beginning on this date or effective immediately, we're gonna ask you to leave. And that person can get upset with you and cry and do all kinds of different things. And but I think we have to hold our own in knowing that we're doing what's right for everyone. If you have, and probably doing what's right for that employee.
And you know what? I think that is also demonstrating leadership, because when you really think about it, you are on stage when you are in a leader role, and other people are watching you. Your other teammates are watching you. And if you're allowing one individual get away with ongoing bad behavior, no matter the coaching that you're providing, they're watching how that is not aligning with your values or your ethics or the culture of your school. And that is just going to take away from your overall reputation, the reputation of your overall school. I really think it's an opportunity for leadership that, as tough as it is, I know that it's so tough for us, because like you having your schools, I have my own schools, and I know at times there was a time I had someone who was in a quasi leadership role where we're doing a transition, and I did not want to get rid of her. She was both in ratio as well as playing a leadership role, but she was also toxic. But the best thing I did is I had to go up there and say it was time for us to separate. And when I did that, there was a whole relief that came over the entire school.
It changes the demeanor of everything. There are actually studies that indicate from the Harvard Business Review, if you add one bad apple to 100 good apples, you get 101 bad apples.
Yeah.
And so it really is important to do. The other one I want to mention on here that someone said is about having an open door policy and being a approachable person. I think the best way to be approachable is to get out and go, around your center, which is hard because many of us are in coverage today with our lack of staffing resources. But the other thing that I would say about an open door policy is that it's important that you are responsive to people when they need you, but it doesn't mean you always have to respond. And so here's what I mean by that. If someone says, Gigi, I have to see you right now, isn't an emergency? So we determine whether it is. And if it's not an emergency, is to be able to say to that person, how about I meet you today at nap time, or can you meet today after your shift, or whatever it is, because then I'd like to be able to give you my full attention, because we can't always have the best conversations and we can't always solve the best problems unless we can really sit down and talk with one another. So while I have an open door policy that people can come in, there are times when I will redirect adults to say, listen, you seem really upset about that. Think about it tonight and let's talk about that tomorrow. Sometimes that gives people an opportunity to kind of calm down a little bit, to get a little bit more self-reflective. Sometimes I might say, wow, that does sound like a problem. List all the reasons why that's concerning to you. And while, again, sometimes people may just want to complain, when you go and ask them to actually list everything down, sometimes it's not as big a problem as they thought it was.
Yeah.
I want to read this one from Terry. I constantly feel like I don't have time for my to-dos, and that I don't spend time doing the should-dos. I love that, the have-to-dos and the should-dos. So I have my to-do list and I never get through my to-do list. But what I do with the should-dos, Terry, is that I put those on my calendar. So I knew today that some people would be in the office and I should talk to them. I knew that if I sat in my office and didn't put it on my calendar to walk out for a half an hour, that I would have just stayed here going through emails and going through all whatever it is that's on my desk that keeps me from getting out and about. And so I made that a point to do that. I make it a point to talk to one franchisee once a week. I make it a point to visit one center in a certain frequency time. And I think all those kinds of things are what helps me do the should do's. And sometimes the should do's, if they're done well, make you have to do less of the to do's. And it takes a little bit of time for that to turn. But if you're really creating loyalty with people, if you're really establishing an emotional connection, if you're really training them well, then you're going to have less people who leave. If you're really out there and create a supportive environment, you're going to have less people leave. If you're really working with teachers on curriculum and doing fun things, you're going to have less classroom management issues. And so those should do's, in my mind, are probably the most important to-dos.
Well, and let me ask you this, sort of going off of Terry's question and you answering that. You obviously now have many locations with Lightbridge, and I'm sure you would love to get to every school, talk to every teacher. I know I want to with just my 3 schools, plus running Inspire Care 360. I would love to get out there, but unfortunately I can't. How do you tend to prioritize your should-dos in looking at, the fact is you can get spread so thin, and I'm sure that a Gigi that gets spread too thin is not value to money.
No, she's very sleepy. So I think that it goes back to trust. So when I was in the classroom, it was my job to teach children. And now that I'm a leader, it's my job to teach adults. And I can have an exponential impact on children and families by doing the job that I was called to do right now. So I am hoping, and in most cases I see demonstrated, that by the way I act, what I do, how we train, that there are people who are interacting with children, who are visiting those centers, who are not only doing a job like I would do, Tony, they're doing a better job than I would do. I, as a leader, am blessed to be surrounded by people who are way smarter than I am in finance, way smarter in technology, who have operational ideas and Excel spreadsheets that would never come to mind. And I feel like more of an orchestra leader of how do I create a team that functions well? How do I empower people to use their innovation? How do I get people in a place where they feel comfortable with their role and they go with it? And it's much more that I could ever come up with on my own. I'm limited in what I can do, but with a group, we could do anything.
I'm so glad you said that too, because like I have an executive director, Jen, who she hung the moon, whether she knows it or not, she has hung the moon. And she's amazing, and her directors are amazing. And why are her directors amazing? It's because of her. It's because of those directors too. And honestly, the best thing they've probably ever done is say, Tony, we got this. You do not have to come over to us and worry about us too much, which means that I think in the back of my mind that I'm doing my job as a leader to allow them to explore, to be empowered to do what they need to. And that has been going so well, because when I would come into the offices and stuff like that, they'd be like, oh boy, here we go. He's going to come and make a bunch of suggestions and recommendations. But I have someone who's like, Tony, we know what you're seeking. We know your vision, but here's how we look at executing. And I love the fact that they're so empowered to do it. So just playing off of what you were mentioning, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and no one likes a micromanager. I mean, if we hired someone, we have to trust them to do the job that they were hired to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Where would you like to go next on this? Because
Well,
we've had some
let's take the next slide and we'll take it from there. So this is one of the things that I think is so important, and I use this all the time. The quality of your program is only as strong as your most marginal performer. And so if you think of who in your center needs the most work, who in your center needs the most training, who in your center do you wish might leave, who in your center, given that staffing crisis we have, you wish would leave but wouldn't leave because we need the ratio coverage here, is that quality is made up of everyone, and every single position is as important as my position or your position, because that's how we're able to care for families and educate people and help people learn. Let's advance to the next one. So this is what I said before, is that when one of your employees is not succeeding, you ask yourself, what do I need to do differently? What do I need to do differently? And in some cases where we have exhausted all resources, as you had indicated before, Tony, maybe I have done everything I can and this is not a good fit. But until I know that for sure, I need to make sure that I'm continuing to grow. I believe that everyone needs to be a mentor and have a mentor during all times of your life. So I am currently mentoring people, and I have 3 different people that I meet with on a monthly basis who help me along my journey and who are past that. I've got an executive coach, I've got a strategic person, and people that I can say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. What do you think? But at the same time, I look at people who are a few steps behind where I am and where I came from, and I say, how can I help you? And I think when we do that, when you teach, you learn. And it's always being in a mindset of, what can I learn? What can I be open to? What can I be open-minded to? And one of the things that Jim taught me that I love so much is that he taught me to answer every question, suggestion, comment, complaint from anybody that you get with why not. So if my son says, when he was in high school, can I stay out till 1 o'clock in the morning? My thought process is going to be, why not? And I'll circle back around to that story in a second. And if a teacher says, or a parent says, hey, can you serve dinner? And I'm like, oh, why do you think we're going to put them in pajamas and give them a bath and serve them dinner? My response is going to be, why not? Well, guess what? For that center that's near that hospital where they're on shifts 12 hours a day, serving dinner is actually a good idea. for the child to get a nutritious meal, for the parent to be more relaxed, and for everyone to be successful. For my son, who wanted to stay out till 1 o'clock, they wanted to go night skiing with a dad. So they were with parents who were going to take them to a diner afterwards. So the answer is, okay, if I can speak to that parent, but it's not okay to stay out for 1 if you have no idea what you're doing and you just want to be out, you know? So having that mindset is hard to do because we all want to kind of answer things right away. But I think it's really important.
That's awesome. We have a few minutes left because I need to end with 1 or 2 slides. And folks, if you have any questions for Gigi and we weren't able to get to them, we'll also try to get to them. But don't hesitate to post your questions. But Gigi, just a few more thoughts that you might have. And by the way, I'm going to definitely ask you to come back in the future.
Thanks, Tony.
Conversation.
So these are kind of the things that I start in that self-reflection process, and I still use these today. I have a big board meeting on Thursday, and I'm thinking of these right now. And I'll think of these when that meeting's over. Was my communication effective, or did I set people up to fail? You know, did I have unrealistic expectations? Did I communicate at all, or just assume people would know how to do things? Did I communicate in a variety of ways? And did I give people a chance to ask questions to know that they understand? And it's just so important to be, and not to be, to talk down to anyone, but to be able to say to someone, do you understand what we're talking about? Or to be able to say, re-say it to me so that we're both on the same page. Or describe to me just in briefly how you'd go about that, so I know that we're both thinking about the same thing. And those are just easy ways.
No, but I think it's not only easy, but I think it's really important today because quite often we're communicating through text, we're communicating through email. We're not oftentimes, one of the values that I try to have our team reach out to our members and anybody we can virtually, at least, because we're in different cities, is because you can see people's expression. You can see if they're disturbed or something's bothering them. And how many times have we misread text messages, misread emails? And when you look at giving people a chance to ask questions to ensure they understand, because it's not only that they might understand competent wise, it might be just the way they're interpreting it from their leader. Quite often they might be intimidated by you, they might be intimidated by me, but they shouldn't be. However, they sometimes are. So having an opportunity to let that person ask questions, I think, is just fantastic. We did have one question before we go here. One person, just to jump back a little bit, was asking, you were talking about why not, and they weren't exactly sure they understood. Could you explain a little bit more about your why not?
Sure. So let's say that a parent says to me, my child was sick. Can they stay in and not go on the playground? And in my mind, my thought is, why not? Why not does not always mean yes. It just means that I will always be open-minded. I will always be open-minded to any question that someone asks me. And that's the definition of why not. And so I just want to confirm with that Zoom user that, that there's some clarity around that. So it's really a state of mind of being open to anything, but recognizing that in group care settings and in a situation where safety is the most important thing, that your answer is sometimes no, even to questions that are good.
Well, thank you very much for explaining that. Gigi, we're coming really close to the end of our time, so I want to thank you greatly for joining us today. I could tell from our chat line behind the scenes here, that a lot of people are very engaged. People have read your books. They've heard you before. They love hearing from you. So I'm definitely wanting to have you back in the near future because I like our conversations as usual. So I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. And I wanted to thank our audience. I'm going to give them just 1 or 2 things about some upcoming things, but I just wanted to thank you, Gigi.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of you out there. It is a pleasure to be with people who care so much about young children and their families. Take care.
Thank you, Gigi. That's awesome. You know, again, Gigi's absolutely wonderful, and we're so happy that she was able to join us. And thank you for all joining us today. We do have another webinar coming up on the 26th. So that's not that far away, just under 10 days here, obviously. And this is with Brandy Wood Smith. She runs an association called Child Care Millionaires. And Brandy is an absolute hoot. She's a leader in her own right. We are going to be at Child Care Millionaire, which is coming up in Houston in May. We would highly recommend it. She runs a very unique conference, wonderful things, and we're going to be there. So we're looking forward to you joining us on the 26th to hear a little bit about Brandy's going to be talking about CEO pitfalls, 4 different childcare CEO pitfalls and ways to avoid it. So if you can join us, that would be fantastic. We'll be sending you a link so you can join up with us. And then to finalize it is, you know, if you want to learn more about Inspire Care 360, I think you all get it. We're in the people business. That's what IC360 does. We have a platform. And our platform is Inspire University. As you know, there's a lot of things. There's professional development associated with it. There's handbooks, parent, staff handbooks. There's onboarding, learning and development. Your own content goes on there, feedback from surveys and questionnaires and all those kind of tools are all part of a peak performance, as well as a series of other back office solutions. So if you're interested in what Inspire Care 360 can do for you, we'd love to have you on board. But it's our pleasure to bring to you these subject matter experts about once a month, and we look forward to seeing you in about 8 days. So sign up for the one with Brandy, and everybody have a wonderful remaining time on your Tuesday. Have a great day. Thank you everybody for joining us. This is Tony DiAugustino with Inspire Care 360. Have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.